Hey friend, I'm Danielle Damrell, and I am so grateful that you're listening to the Created Worthy podcast. This show is all about honoring the life stories of women from different ages, beliefs, backgrounds, and experiences. Everyone's got a story, and instead of getting stuck in the trap of unworthiness, this is a safe place for stories to be shared. On this show, we chat about the transformative power of creative processing too, and how we can utilize our God-given creativity with intention to heal, grow, find joy, create simplicity in the midst of our chaotic lives. So pull up a seat at our table because we are all created worthy. Hello, welcome back to the Created Worthy podcast. Today, I'm joined by another worthy warrior, Stephanie Smout. Stephanie is a woman of passion and unwavering determination who believes in living authentically and with purpose. Her conviction led her to pivot from climbing the corporate ranks to founding her own business, dedicated to empowering fellow entrepreneurs to build low-tech websites to improve their visibility, credibility, and profitability. She is wholeheartedly committed to helping others establish a strong online presence that contributes to their growth and success. Stephanie is a marketing strategist at heart who now primarily focuses on websites. She founded the Clicks and Tricks Academy and has the cutest little paper clips. That's right. And that is a digital course. Clicks and Tricks Academy is a digital course and community that supports entrepreneurs who want to DIY their websites, with the goal of making technology easy and accessible, ensuring entrepreneurs have the support they need to shine online. Stephanie is also a best-selling author and speaker, a proud French-Canadian, loving wife, and mother of three. She cherishes her journey as an online business owner, which grants her the flexibility to fully embrace the joys of family life. Away from the entrepreneurial hustle, Stephanie unwinds by running, reading, and traveling, three hobbies that provide the rejuvenation needed to continually innovate and stay creative. She strongly believes that physical exercise, intellectual growth, and disconnecting from the daily grind is the most conducive to staying creative and inspired, while also allowing her to be her best self for her family, friends, and clients. I have had the absolute privilege of getting to know Stephanie this year, as she was another one of the authors of the book Living All Out. And we worked together on her life story and really even just some business strategy, and eventually grew to become friends as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So I am so honored to have you here today, my friend. Thank you for joining us on the Created Worthy podcast. And I can't wait for my listeners to hear even more about your real life story.
Well, thank you, Danielle. It's great to be here, and thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, so we are going to talk about your life today and the who behind what you do. So you are a digital marketer,
Yes.
digital marketing strategist. You help people all the time. You've started speaking this year. You've had a really exciting year in business. But I want to know about who you are. So can you take me back to the beginning? Where did you grow up? What was life like for you? Paint us a picture of your life in French Canada. Is that what I'd call it?
Yeah, French Canada. Yeah, the French-speaking part of Canada, so the province of Quebec. I grew up in a small town about an hour away from Montreal. French-speaking town. Grew up in a French-speaking family. I didn't start speaking English until I was about 12 years old, actually. But yeah, it was a good life. I had a good childhood. Grew up with an older brother and a younger sister who I'm still very close to today. And our kids are growing up to be close as well. So that's really nice to see. And I grew up figure skating, actually. That was kind of my passion. And I did it, I think I started at the age of 4. And I skated and competed until I was about 18 years old. And that was a huge part of my life for a long time. So when I stopped figure skating, I mean, it was a bit of a bit of a heartbreak for me. I always say it was like my first heartbreak, really, because that was such a big passion and a big part of growing up. My friends were in skating. My life pretty much revolved around going to school or going to the arena, and that was
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
You know those what movie is it? Like uh it's all about I and the life of an ice skater. I feel like it's a Disney movie. Oh
Oh,
gosh.
there's a
I
few of them. The
but they
cutting edge or
yeah,
something like
something
that.
like
Yeah.
that. But they show like how intense a
Mm,
figure skating life is, like where you're in the gym or in the on the ice early,
yes.
you're going there after school. Is that how it was in real life for you?
Yes, actually it was. It didn't start out that way, obviously, right? It started more as
Yeah.
a, hobby, something we would do when we were kids on weekends and things. But over time, I grew to love the sport so much. I wanted to compete. And so that required a lot of trainings. And around I guess around the age of 12 or 14, then I started doing it even more seriously. So I would train during the school year, I would train in the mornings prior to going to school, wake up very early. My mom had the energy and dedication to take us to the rink really early in the morning. So we could at least be on ice for an hour before our day started, essentially.
Wow.
Yeah, she would even drive us. I think it was a 45-minute drive to get to the rink. That's where my coach was. So that
Oh
that
my
explains the long drive.
goodness.
Yeah. And then in the summers, it was 5 days a week. So that was my entire summer. We'd get up at 5 in the morning, which for, a teenager, that's something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we would be on the ice 3 hours that morning, three different sessions of 1 hour. And then we'd have ballet, we'd go to the gym, we'd do a variety of things to help our training. And at the time, I had my friends in school didn't really understand why I was doing all this. It's okay to have a passion, but this seemed like it was kind of taking over my life. But skating was my
Yeah.
life. It was my passion. And I never felt like I was missing out on any summers because I spent my summers with my friends on ice, right? So,
Mhm.
on the ice. So yeah, and it taught me so much, right? Like looking back, I never made it to the Olympics, although that would have been a great dream come true. That wasn't the case for me, but I took away so much from my years in figure
Yeah.
skating, the
And I'm sure that
discipline.
that's
I,
exactly what I was going to say. The
yeah,
discipline, it had to have instilled that, like,
yes,
discipline has a purpose, right? I think for a lot of kids, especially now in this modern age,
yeah,
discipline has become just immediately associated with punishment, whereas the purpose of discipline is actually it's functional, right? Like having discipline is what helps us to develop habits and helps us to overcome the harder challenges
yes.
that feel impossible. And
Hmm.
you did that over and over. I
Yeah,
do know a little bit of your story, so I
sure.
would love for you to talk a bit about how I know, was it you were like 12 years old or something when you
Yeah,
moved the first time? Is that
that's right.
and you
Yeah.
chose this. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, so when I was writing my story and having you help me, I tried to identify some of the moments in my life where I decided to do things differently. That's kind of been a common theme in my life.
Yes.
And I think my earliest memory of that was really when I was 12 years old. My parents said, okay, where do you want to go to school? I had just finished grade 6, which is the end of elementary school for us in Canada. And they said, okay, you can go to the local high school, which for us starts in grade 7. So they said, you can go to the local high school, which is what everybody in my town did. That was the only school. I mean, that was kind of like a given, is
Yeah.
that was the next step for you. Or if you'd like, we can, look into other options if you wanted to go study in English, for example, right? Because I had always done my education in French, and that sounded like amazing to me. What an opportunity, because I didn't speak English at the time. I had it in school a little bit, so maybe like 1 hour a week. So I didn't really speak it all that much. But my parents said, if you want this, we can look into options to make that happen. And so at the age of 12, the only option at the time for me to study in English was to study in Montreal, in the big city. Right.
Mm.
Yeah. And I had to live with my aunt, who I barely knew at the time. Right. Like she lived in Montreal. We lived in a small town an hour away. So I would only see her like during the holidays
Yeah,
and, at
exactly.
family events and things like that. So I knew her, but I wasn't like I didn't really know her.
Yeah.
But she said, yeah, I'll take her in, and, you know, like she can stay with us. And then on weekends I would go home to be with my family. But you know, that was a big step, like going to a school, the big city, a city I didn't know,
Yeah.
and starting fresh in a school where I didn't know anybody out of my own initiative, right? I know a lot of kids do
Yeah.
that because they
Well, and
kind of have
immersed
to,
in a language
but
that you don't even yet fully understand. Like that
yeah.
takes some courage. That takes some courage.
Yeah,
And
I don't know.
yeah,
Looking back, I'm like, was I courageous or just, you know, like, I don't know what I was
I
thinking at
think
the
you were
time.
courageous. We're going with that.
Okay.
You were living beyond the norm, which we
Yes.
established is a pattern of your life. So that was a great first example. And I think, I mean, that's a big thing. It would be hard for most adults to do that. So the fact that you took that big of a step at 12 years
Mm.
old, I hope and I think just from knowing where you're at now, that probably propelled you forward and gave you that confidence that like, oh, I can take risks. I can do
Exactly.
things that other people aren't doing and still succeed and prioritize what I want to do. And you still did ice skating when you were in
Yes.
Montreal, right?
Yeah, because I would do it mostly on the weekend at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, I continued to skate through that. And yes, like you said, it kind of set the stage, like taking that big risk and making this major change in my life, going in a direction that nobody else went in,
Mm-hmm.
set the stage for all these other, let's say, pivotal moments in my life
Yeah.
where I decided to once again live outside the norm, right? Try to do things differently. And it was not doing things differently for the point of just doing things differently.
No.
It was just, I always asking myself, is this what I truly want? And, you know, what are my options? Because sometimes we think
Yeah.
we don't have options,
Yeah.
but sometimes we have to push ourselves to think outside the box a little bit and see what's
Exactly.
really an option. Like
Yes.
there's always a way to do things differently. Even
But
if
you have to
nobody's
take,
done it before, right? Like,
yes, exactly. And you have to take that time to do that self-reflection. And most kids don't have the know with all. Is that the right word? To actually do that.
yeah.
But that's what I think for me, like when I go back and I like am telling my friends about different stories from living all out, that's one thing that really sticks out for me because I am excited for you to get into this next part where you talk about the next big courageous step that you took because that one action in your childhood at 12 years
Mm.
old really has set you up in such an incredible way. And it wasn't the thing that was so unique about it is like you hear stories, usually older, of older kids or older young adults who have done things that were out of the norm. But a lot of times it's like attention driven. And for you, it
Mm.
wasn't attention driven. It was like introspective. You were like, I don't know if I want to do it like that. Let me figure out what I want to do. And then you did it. And that's what you've continued to do. So
Yeah.
after you graduate from high school, what was your next big step?
Actually, it was just before I graduated high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next big step for me was, I think, so for us in French speaking Canada, we graduate high school in grade 11. So in that
Oh.
last year of high school, my parents once again said, well, you know, skating is such a big part of your lives now, not only for me, but for my younger sister as well. We were, you know, like throughout my teen years, I started training more and competing more, and it became kind of central, right, to our lives, and we loved it. And my parents came to the realization that training in the early hours of the morning and then going to a full day of school after that was kind of hard, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there were
That
long
would
days
be
at school.
exhausting.
Yeah. And you wake up like really early in the morning, and then you have to do your homework at night and so on and so forth. So they said, well, you know, we could put you in this other school where you could essentially go to school in the morning and then train in the afternoon. And this school was really meant to combine like to allow higher level athletes to combine their education with their sport,
Mm.
you know, and in a way that's more suitable for their lifestyles, right?
Yeah.
And so again, the discipline came into play here because with half of your day in class, you had to make up for that time you weren't in class in a different way. So
Yep.
there was a lot more schoolwork. So you had to really have the discipline to do it, because if you weren't completing all the different modules and taking their tests in time, you wouldn't be able to graduate on time or move to the next, next grade. So I decided to do that, which was a bit, well, it was definitely unconventional because I was in my last year of high school. So I was literally choosing to leave all my friends behind in this like big final year for us, where we have prom and graduation and all these different like big moments, like life defining moments. And I was about to give all of that up for my passion, which was figure skating. Right. And was it worth it? Right. A lot of people even ask me today, like in hindsight, like, okay, you didn't make it to the Olympics. So do you see that it was not the right decision? And I say, no, it was the right decision for me at the time. I still feel like this was perfect because it gave me exposure to different opportunities and kind of put my life on a different path that what it would have been if I hadn't made that decision. Right. Things would have looked very different, not in a bad way, but I was just, I would have missed out on meeting. I met some really good friends who I'm still friends with today, that are still part of my life. And it's not just about the friendships, but just, again, stepping outside of my comfort zone and like, I don't know, I guess I learned a lot through that 1 year and what came afterwards. Right. So no regrets, no regrets.
Yes. No regrets. I was just going to say that. No regrets. Is that?
There you go.
Yes. Okay. So you finished up finished up high school in a unconventional way.
Yeah.
You prioritized your sport alongside education. You went to a school that combining your passion with your education was the goal, and you graduated. At what point did you stop figure skating? Or figure out that was no longer something that was
sure. It was the year. Yeah, it was not long after that. I think it was about a year or two after that. And just before I started college, it got to the point where then at this point in my life, I had given figure skating my all. It had been my passion for the longest time. And I was just at a crossroads where I had to decide, okay, what's my next step? Can I really keep this up, this amount of training and all this time and energy I'm putting into my sport, and combine that with, my college education, essentially. So I had to make the hard decision to quit ice skating. And that was, like I said, a big heartbreak for me because it was linked to my identity. I was an ice skater and a student at that point in my life, right? Like those were my big pillars in my life, like skating, school, that was it. Obviously family and other things, but those were two things were big themes in my life at that time. And so that was really hard. But then I found another passion, which was traveling and learning languages was kind of the next thing for me. So for many years, and it still is, I enjoy traveling very much. And do speak several languages. French is my mother tongue, then English, and then I speak a decent amount of Spanish, and my husband's mother tongue is Dutch. So it's very much our house. Yeah.
That is so fun. When we start talking about motherhood, I want to hear how you guys do that in your house.
Absolutely.
But before we get there, let's talk about college and the start of your career.
Yes. So I decided to pursue like a business degree, business administration in my undergrad. And then in graduate school, I did international business. So the languages and the traveling, combining, all these things was great. I loved it. I got to do my bachelor's of business administration in French, English, and Spanish. So I had a third of my classes in French, a third in English, and a third in Spanish, which was for me an amazing challenge. Yeah, it was a great challenge. And as part of that was an exchange program as well, where I got to study 1 semester abroad in Spain. So just really life-changing experiences that were just great. And naturally through my education, I gravitated towards marketing. It was kind of, I've always had this creative side, especially, think of like figure skating as well, right? Like the artistic component of figure skating. And it's not just about the technical of doing the spins and the jumps, but also combining like the artistic component,
and the music,
essentially dancing on ice, right? Yeah. So marketing was kind of like the way I went.
I've always been fascinated by figure skating because I'm like, it's not quite dancing. I mean, I can do some interpretive dancing, not on ice. Nope.
It's
Not on
different.
ice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's different, but I love it. I still do to this day. There's something special
Yeah.
about it.
Oh,
But yeah,
good.
so marketing, being this artistic, creative kind of person, I naturally gravitated towards marketing. And so after graduation, I started in the corporate world, in marketing and communications, and doing a little bit of everything, being a jack of all trades for that specific, department within the organization. I was from the very beginning, I was put in a leadership position where I was like leading the organization's marketing efforts. So that was great because I got to basically take the lead on all the initiatives, and it gave me also the opportunity to be immersed in a lot of different things, such as website management, social media.
Yeah.
I had to learn graphic design, to
Develop those
create.
skills.
Yeah, exactly, which was great. I felt like beyond college and grad school, I was still learning so much. I loved it. Still do. I still love marketing. It's still what I do. But over time, I realized that, going all into my corporate career was phenomenal. I had a great time, but then my husband and I were thinking of having a family, and I just didn't feel the time that I could keep up the pace of my corporate life and putting in the hours and, working to like climb that corporate ladder and have children at the same time and being like fully present, and not just being fully present, but also not completely burnt out, essentially. Right. I could see this was going to be for me a train wreck. And I thought this is another one of those pivotal moments where I have to see what are my options. At that time, it seemed like, well, the normal route would be I, go on maternity leave, or the so-called maternity leave of 3 months and 12 weeks, and then go back to work right after. And I thought, okay, what other options available to me, right? What else can I do? And at that time, I just felt like, okay, why don't I just start my own thing, right? Take a few months off to really, learn about becoming a mother, because when you have your first child, there's just so much to learn. Right? Like, give myself time to get comfortable with this new life, right? When you bring a baby into your family, like everything changes. With every child, there's a lot of, you have to adapt to your new reality as a family of 3, 4, and now 5. So I decided, okay, let's take a few months off to be with the baby and do this. And then after that, we'll see. And I'll start offering marketing services to people who I know need help. So that's what I did. And I started my own business, and I started mainly in the beginning just serving people I knew in my immediate network that needed help and knew me and what I could, offer. And so it allowed me to kind of better manage my schedule, my workload, to make it more compatible with this new life I had of, being a young mom. So yeah, so that's kind of how I switched from corporate life to entrepreneurship.
I love that. And I think one thing that I'm just now seeing is how in every season that you've talked about so far, it comes from a choice, right? You chose to seek another language. You chose to pursue your passion of figure skating. You chose to leave figure skating so that you could pursue your passion, a new passion, and your creativity and your desire to learn about other cultures too. Like when you learn a language, it's never just about learning that language. It's really about learning that other culture. And then you chose to go into marketing because of all of these reasons. It's not like you're just saying that you did this, you did this, you did this without any reason behind it. You continue to say, what are the other opportunities? Like you really contemplated these things, and then you made a decision based off of what you've contemplated. And so in the season that you're now talking about, you chose motherhood. You chose motherhood. And that became your number one passion, which I think is just such an incredible character quality that I just want to highlight is, as human beings, we can have multiple passions. We can be multi-passionate. We can be, entrepreneurs that have different businesses and wear different hats. But at the end of the day, we all have a core desire. And sometimes those core desires change in different seasons, and as they should, right?
Mhm.
Um, but really being able to take the time and do the introspective work and asking yourself, like, what opportunities do I have? What do I really want? What kind of life do I want? That's what actually helps you to make that next informed step
Mhm.
of, okay, I'm going to choose motherhood, which means all these other passions have to come second to that. So how do I still pursue my other passions, but
Mhm.
with motherhood being the intention, right? And you being able to be a present mom and be able to have the family and the freedom to have and raise your family the way that you want to. That's
Mhm.
wisdom. That's so wise. You are
Thank you.
so wise. I have loved just listening to you connect these dots, because for me, I'm like, wow, like there's another woman in the book, Living All Out, who I think it was Pam Tobin.
Mm.
She talks a lot about choices as well in her story. And you guys actually have kind of a similar a way of approaching your next decision,
Mhm.
in it being about a choice. Like you have to be decisive. We live in a world where like indecisiveness is like more normal than being decisive. Like there are so many people who just like are, and me included, I've struggled with this. This is something that I've had to like diligently work on, but we're more comfortable with living in this like indecisive place of like, oh, not yet. Or maybe I can make it to that party, or maybe I'll have another kid, or maybe I'll go to college, or maybe I'll try digital marketing, all of these different maybes, but we're holding
Mhm.
ourselves back from the amount of time that we could be in the yes, I am. In those yes, I am seasons, I am a digital marketer. I am a
Mhm.
website whiz. I am, a speaker, a writer. I'm an author. Like if you had sat in those like, oh, maybe I want to do this, maybe, then you wouldn't have what you have now. I mean, I'm even saying this like to preach to myself and as well, but like the importance of being decisive is
Mhm.
actually a game changer in your path towards healing and freedom and all of these different things that we all say we want. But if you're not willing to actually make those decisions, to take those risks, even when risks are disguised as like obstacles, sometimes I think I probably had this conversation with you. There are some times in our lives where we have all of these opportunities. They look like opportunities, but we have to discern whether it's an opportunity or an obstacle. And what looks like an obstacle or what looks like an opportunity might actually be an obstacle for that time. That doesn't mean that in the future it wouldn't
Mhm.
turn into an opportunity, but being
Right.
able to do that, like, okay, what do I actually want? What opportunities do I have? What opportunities can I create? And then deciding, yep, I'm going to go in. I'm going to go all into this one. And if I fail, or if I don't, I honestly very rarely use the word fail, because I just don't think that failure is failure. A lot of times
Mhm.
I think it's
Yep.
falling. So I say, when you fall, is that a failure? No, no, it's
Yeah,
not.
you're right. I heard somebody, and I can't recall who said it, but you never fail, you learn.
Yeah.
And it's what you do with what you've learned that really matters, and
Yes.
how you pick yourself back up and pivot,
Yeah,
right? And I
exactly.
think going back to what you were saying about opportunity and making decisions, I would take it even a step further and say it's also about taking action.
Mm,
I think a lot of people don't reach that decision because they're afraid of taking action and maybe doing it wrong or going down the wrong path. But I feel like in most cases, you can always not go back, but you can always, if you've gone left, you can say, okay, well, you know what? I've tried it, didn't work, I'm going to go right this time. there's
yeah.
there's no there's no like forever here for in most situations, I guess. I'm thinking, for example, an example in my personal life. So after graduating from my master's degree, we had this opportunity, my husband and I, to relocate to the US, and that's how we've been here for 12 years, I think it's been. Yeah. And at the time, we felt like, my husband and I were talking, and he's like, well, I don't know if this is the right timing for us. And, what about this? And what about that? And I said, look, we don't have kids right now. We don't even own a home. Like, we're free birds. right? Let's give it a try. I think it's a great opportunity for your career. And, we're moving to a country that speaks English. I speak English. I'll make it work. Like, and it's about taking
Did he
that
speak
action.
English?
He did. He
Okay.
did. So that was fine. But I just told him, like, work wise, I'll find a job. Like, it's, I speak English. So
Yeah.
there's no language barrier at least. And it's kind of like just taking action, just doing it. And what's the worst that could have happened? Right? Like if we didn't like the experience after a year, 2 years, we could have just gone home, right? Like we could have just gone back to our home countries, done something different, like it's not just about taking risk, I don't see it as a risk. It's like, it's really going all into this opportunity, trying to make the most of it. And whatever would have happened if we didn't like it and decide to go home, we still would have learned a lot and we would have been able to better position ourselves for the next step.
Yeah.
Because now
It's like
more.
Choosing to take action and
Right.
not being afraid of the result.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, fear is a lot of times natural when you're going into a new season, when you're making a across the world move. I think there's going to be some sort of fear. So let's not like get that mixed up. But I think that's where you have to like push past those. There's like the fear of the uncomfortable, and then there's like the fear because you're in danger. And I think that we kind of misperceive that within our own bodies sometimes. And we perceive something as what feels like, oh, it's not safe, but just because we're uncomfortable, because we don't know how, we can't picture, envision how the other side would look, versus us being in fear because like you maybe don't want to walk down an alleyway in New York City at 3:00 in the morning. Like, it's a different kind of fear.
Yeah. Different kind of risk, right?
Yes, exactly. So you chose motherhood and you guys started your family. You kind of gave us a sneak peek. You said you have 3 of them now.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit more about being an entrepreneur and kind of stepping into this life of being a fully present mom? I mean, we all make mistakes. So I'm sure
of course. Nothing's perfect. Yeah.
Nothing's perfect. But a present mom who chose motherhood, but is still a full-time entrepreneur. Tell us about your life.
Sure. So I, at the time of recording this, my kids are 5, 3, and 2. So very close in age and still very little. Yeah.
Yeah. Little.
I know. Little ones. And so, I can't say that, trying to run a business and to, grow the business as well as taking care of these little people and being present and trying to do all the things. It's not always easy. It's not all sunshine and rainbows here. But at least it gives me, running my own business, what I've loved is that it's given me the opportunity to be there for school pickup at 3 p.m. every day. My day starts earlier than most, so I will try to get up like particularly early. As you know, from my figure skating days, getting up at 5 a.m. is not something, that's uncomfortable for me. Like I'm an early riser. Yes. So I can get up to get at least 1 or 2 hours of work done in the morning before the kids get up. Then we start our day. We can have breakfast together. I can, help them get ready for school and all that. And then I work while they're at school. And then at 3 p.m. I go and pick them up and we spend the rest of the day together. So for me, yes, entrepreneurship is hard, right? It's a roller coaster ride. But it's given me that opportunity to be there for my kids in ways that I would not have been able to if I would have been in corporate life. Right. So that for me is like, that's a luxury. That's something that I really cherish very much. And it's been great. So life for us is busy to say the least. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like I could go I could get more things accomplished in my business and I want to scale it and grow the business and all that. And I understand that in this phase of life that I'm in now, my kids really need me. They're super little, right? So I do the best I can with every day and take it just one day at a time. And that's really worked well for me. Yeah.
Good. And one thing that you've talked about before is encouraging them to embark on their own entrepreneurial journeys.
Yes.
So how do you do that at
I know.
5, 3, and 2? Like, is it in your conversations? Is it in letting them see you work?
Sure. They know mom works, right? Like they know where the office is. It's off limits. So I don't want them touching all the all the things.
Yeah.
But
spilling juice on the keyboard.
Right. I will find them in here every now and then with like a highlighter in hand and like, but that's okay. So I mean, they're still little, so we're not having like any serious conversations. I think it's more about like, I want them to know that it's an opportunity for them if they ever wanted to be entrepreneurs one day. Like now they know it's possible because they can see their mom doing it. I'm not pushing them in that direction in any way, shape, or form. I really, if that's something they feel called to do, like they can do it. But if they want a 9 to 5, that is okay, or something else completely different, I'm very much about giving them the space to make those choices for themselves. My parents did that for me, and I'm so grateful that they didn't, push me down any particular path. So I want to do the same for them.
Opportunities are there are opportunities all around you. You just have to look for them.
Exactly. And I tried to the one thing I try to do is to challenge their thoughts of if they say like, oh, one day I want to be a police officer, right? Because that's kind of a common theme when you're a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's great. And then I just kind of open it up like, oh, so you like the law and justice. Would you ever consider doing this other profession or this? It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
It's just about kind of training them to think that there are other options, right?
Yeah.
Not that being a police officer is great. Yeah. If that's what they want to do,
no, Mom, I like the badge.
I know, right? I want the uniform. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
It's all about the uniform.
Yeah. So that's the only thing I do. I think I just try to always try to help them see that, there are so many options, because sometimes we don't always think of these options naturally, right? Mm-hmm. We think we only have A, B, and C in life when we have like the whole alphabet.
Yeah.
Really. So yeah.
True.
Yeah. So that's what I do.
So now let's talk a little bit about your business. So you now help entrepreneurs to launch their own websites. Yeah, that's the bulk of what you do. But why don't you give us kind of a little overview of what your entrepreneurship journey has turned into and what your business is now focused on?
Sure. So like I said earlier, when I first started my business, it was more about offering general marketing services because I had been a generalist in the past in that field, right? So I had done a little bit of everything. But over time, I noticed that there was this great need for people to help with websites, particularly. And then, I started my business in 2018, and then, come the pandemic, right? And here I thought, oh, well, with all this uncertainty, marketing is going to just die, right? I'm going to have a lot less business because that's the first thing to go when there's any kind of uncertainty, right? If people fear that there's a recession or something coming, marketing is like the first thing out the door. Well, it was actually quite the opposite. As you know, everybody went online. Yeah, everybody went online, whether people were starting their own businesses because they lost their jobs, or, big companies started offering all these other, services they didn't have. Like I know grocery pickup and was it pickup and Target, drive up orders and things like that. Maybe that stuff existed even before, but there was this huge surge in people just going online to get their services that way. And so in my business, I was busier than ever, but I really saw this shift in people just struggling with their tech and just needing help essentially. So I decided to niche down and really focus on helping people who are, most of the clients that I work with are the ones that, are a little bit more hands-on. So a lot of them are solopreneurs, right? When you're a solopreneur, you have to wear different hats. So you have to do a little bit of everything, whether it's your accounting, your, the admin tasks, but also your marketing and your social media and all that, right? So a lot of people came to me and needed help also with the website. They couldn't make sense of it, or they were on a platform that's too techy for them and required coding. And so I've decided to kind of promote low-tech websites for people, because what I want is for people to feel comfortable with their website. So it's not so daunting, because the most important thing for me, and I think for any entrepreneur, is to just put yourself out there. Mm-hmm. I think that in 2023 now, if you have a business, you need a website, period. Yeah. I think that it goes so much towards building your credibility, obviously helping with your visibility as well, to have that online presence. And that's beyond, social media. Social media is great. It's an awesome tool for business owners, but the website still has a very important place in my mind. I think that it really gives you that instant credibility and helps you build your authority in your space when people can just, when you can just tell people, yeah, go check me out online. Here's my website. Then people take you a little bit more seriously, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, so how can I help people and then teach them, right? A lot of what I do now is about teaching people and empowering them to have control over their platforms. So not only do I build the websites for them, but I also teach them how to use the platforms, because knowledge is power. And I don't think there should be any secrets anymore, right? Like the tools are there anyways for people to use.
And the truth
Sometimes
is, a lot
people
of
just
those
need a helping
tools.
hand. Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I cut you off. That was my bad. A lot of those tools that you're teaching. So you teach specifically mostly Wix, right?
Correct.
As a
Yes.
website host, but a lot of those tools on Wix are very similar as Show It or
Yes.
Go Big Formula, which is a new company that I recently started working with. And that is there when, like you said, knowledge is power. And when you learn that you actually can go and update a page of your website and you don't have to pay someone $600 to just update a few words of a word, a few words or a different, add a new offering. It actually empowers you to continue growing your business as well.
Yes.
And not just like staying stagnant because you don't know how to do something.
Yeah. And you'd be amazed at like how many people have come to me in recent conversations, like even in these past 3 months, a lot of people I've spoken to, they're like, yeah, I offer really great services, but like I'm the best kept secret because nobody knows about what I do. And I'm like, well, do you have a website? Do you have your own social media? And the answer is no, unfortunately, right? Because they haven't had the right support maybe to get their presence launched. And I'm like, for me, it was the first thing I did when I started my business. When I left corporate, like my son was just a few weeks old. I started working on my website and I launched it by the end of that same year. And it was easier for me because people were asking, oh, so what do you do now? And it's like, well, I now work for myself. Go see my website, stephaniesmount.com. Right. So how great did that feel? Not only did it give me credibility in their eyes, but it also gave me a confidence boost to be like, I've got a great website. Go and check it out. I'm really doing this. This is not just a side project. Like I'm going all into this business thing, and you can go and see for yourself online. Right. So there's something about that, and I felt like if I can help others do the same, then I'm all for it, helping people kind of create their own, like help them in their journey to creating their own business and helping them move forward in that and on their journey. Right.
Yes, exactly. And you do such a beautiful job of that.
No,
empowering people to do the thing, to
take action.
Yes. Take action, make those decisions. Yes,
absolutely.
So Stephanie, you know me, I always have to talk about creative processing.
Yes.
And there were a lot of times over this last year when we were doing the book writing process and I was facilitating different workshops and trainings where we would set a prompt, an intention, to either write your bio or do editing or, different parts of the process. And I asked you what your primary creative processing methods were. And you gave me kind of an interesting answer and also so fun. You said, I love to listen to Christmas music when I'm stressed or feeling overwhelmed, even when we are in the middle of summer. That is exactly like my daughter. She falls asleep to Christmas music all year round.
Oh, I love it. She's my person.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And then you also said, but mostly for me, breaking away from the daily grind to try something new or go somewhere new or travel gives you the space to think clearly, stay creative and set an intention. And I just wanted to talk about that for a minute or two, since, as you know, creative processing is activating your creative mind to process a certain intention. It's simple. I've made it much more complicated in the past, but it is very simple. It's just pairing your creativity with intention. And sometimes, as you kind of alluded to, it is hard to even develop an intention when you're spinning, when you're feeling like you're just trapped in that daily grind, when you're getting close to that place of burnout, or maybe something's happened where you feel unheard or unseen, or something comes in and blinds you. And so your mind's just kind of spinning. And as entrepreneurs, most of us have busy minds anyway. So slowing down enough to say like, okay, how do I even want to create? Or like, what is an intention? I get to that point sometimes where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what an intention is. And I think that's why creative processing is such an incredible tool for both healing and growth,
Right.
is because it just gives you some framework on how to start thinking about that when your mind is really busy. That's when it's the most helpful. So we use the prompt. The purpose of enter your creative method is to process, enter your certain intention. So I am going to kind of put you on the spot here.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you to frame any one of your creative methods into this prompt, put it into this prompt with an intention, just to give an example to the listeners, because I usually do this for my guests, but you've gone through my process enough. I think that you can give a good example of how you can use creative processing to help slow down your mind and set that intention. So
yeah. All right. I'm happy to do it. Can you repeat the prompt?
yes,
And then
the purpose of enter whatever your creative method is to process, enter your intention. So the purpose of is to process blank.
So I can give you actually a concrete example of what I've done in writing my chapter for the Living Out Loud book. This is a real life story. So there you go. It doesn't get better than this. Yeah. So I don't know if you recall, but when it came the time to write our chapters, I remember, I think you told us we had a short deadline to get it done. And I thought, oof, imagine me like with 3 little kids at home, obviously life is busy and there's never a dull moment and we're always going. And so it's hard to for me to be able to really set the time aside to write this chapter. I needed to step away, right? I needed to take myself out of the equation, so to speak, find a quiet place. When I talk about like disconnecting from the daily grind, that's what I mean, right? Like I don't think I would have been able to sit at my office desk and just write it out with all those to-do lists surrounding my computer, all the post-it notes. So what I did, and my husband thinks it's like the weirdest thing, but for me, it worked. So the purpose of stepping away for a weekend actually was one evening. I booked a room at a hotel in about 15 minutes away from the house. So like really close. Yeah. But I said, okay, I'm going to check myself in and I'm going to write the chapter. Yes. So the purpose of stepping away from this busy life is to write my chapter and process my life story, because that's what I was doing when I was writing my chapter. So again, it's about stepping away from the daily grind, right? It's just giving yourself that space to be able to think creatively, which doesn't happen when you're just like surrounded by the busyness. Imagine myself like in my home office, the kids playing in the play area, like,
dang,
just down the hall.
Yeah. Mommy.
There's a lot when you're trying to process all this stuff. So you really need, for me anyways, I needed peace and quiet and just not all the busy things that because there's always many things you could be doing, but of course, if you're at home, but if you take yourself out of that environment, it helps to process what you need to process. So.
That was a wonderful example. I love that because that is exactly what creative processing is. It's choosing to do something differently so that you can achieve the intention at hand, and engaging your creativity with that, which is exactly what you did. And you wrote an incredible chapter, Stephanie. When you gave me your chapter, I was like, whoa, like this thing barely needs any editing. This girl knows how to write. What in the world? English isn't even her first language. I'm so confused right now. But then we got on the call and I was like, Stephanie, are you serious? Like you're a rock star. You're incredible. And now our listeners know too, because you just shared your story, but too, like you're an incredible writer. So you're marketing everything that you've learned in your marketing background, and then obviously through your education and just your determination to prioritize education in the midst of it, however that looks in the different seasons, is clearly a part of who you are. It is a part of how you live and how you teach, and the wisdom that you are going to continue to share. So thank you for that example.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it. I mean, it's funny to hear like how different people do it. I think it looks a little bit different for everybody.
Oh, for sure.
I had a friend who preferred to work in a busy coffee shop whenever she needed to do something creative. And for me, that's just not an environment. Oh, there you go. So it's just not the best environment to be creative. And, so it's really different for everybody, but that's how I do it. That's how I did it for my chapter. So
I love it. So before we close, I would love for you to let the listeners know how they can best find and connect with you. Of course, we will have all your information in the show notes. And then I also heard that you might have a little gift for our listeners as well. So
Yes.
take the floor.
Yes, so I do have a free resource that is available on the homepage of my website. It's the 10 things you need to launch your website today. So I've broken it down into the most the simple like 10 items you need, right? Because as you know now, I'm all about taking action. And sometimes in order to do that, we have to tackle things and keep things simple in order to make it happen, right? So I have this free resource available for download on the homepage of my website at stephaniesmout.com. And I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for those who want to find me on social media. My handle on Instagram is at stephanie.smout. So yeah.
And then type in Stephanie Smout anywhere and you're going to find all her things.
Pretty much. Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we are going to put the link to the freebie in her episode show notes. So definitely make sure to go there. She has incredibly beautiful branding as well. Everything is always perfectly written and aesthetically pleasing. And it just lights my creative heart on fire.
Stephanie, you're so sweet.
I am so grateful to have spent some time with you here today and for your courage and vulnerability that it takes to share your story. You have made huge strides in your life and career already and are an inspiration to so many people. Your determination to build a life where you can be present and fulfilled is apparent, and I can't wait to see what this next year has in store for you. Keep shining, speaking, and creating. You, my friend, are created worthy. Thanks for listening and tuning in to the Created Worthy podcast. I hope that today's show resonated with you, and if it did, can you do me a huge favor and go leave a 5-star review? This helps more listeners find the show, and it expands the reach of the stories and concepts that are shared here. All the links and guest information are in the show notes. And if you're on social media, come hang out with me. You can find the Created Worthy podcast on both Instagram and Facebook, or come follow along with my personal IG page, where I just share more about the real, sometimes messy life of your fellow worthy warrior. Can't wait to talk to you soon, friend. And don't forget, we are all created worthy.